lack of consistency comes from the feeling of screwing it, comes from the feeling of failure. It comes from like, well, I missed my diet, so I might as well keep screwing up. I didn't go to the gym, so I might as well just not go to the gym anymore. Whereas if you can start to cultivate this understanding that just because you missed one day or missed 1 week or missed 1 month, you didn't fail, that it's all part of the process, and as long as you get back on track, you're going to be okay, then you can really start to cultivate a lot more consistency, because you're not looking at any one session or any one meal or any one day as a failure. You're looking at it as just part of the process as a whole.
Welcome to the Train with Zan podcast,
where our goal is to help you look, feel, and perform like an athlete.
In each episode, we're interviewing experts in training, nutrition, and sports performance
who will help you separate fact from fiction in the fitness industry.
Now, here's your host, a former professional athlete,
certified personal trainer, and nutrition coach,
Zan Barksdale.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Train with Zan podcast. My name is Zan Barksdale. I'm your host. Thanks for tuning in today. Have a very entertaining and informative episode for you. In today's show, we're going to talk about all the things that are wrong with the fitness industry, whether it be the products that people are selling that just don't work, the marketing systems or scams that people go through, and some of the things that the influencers do online, basically to try to trick people to try to sell products. So a lot of information in here. The guy I speak to is very open, honest, and makes a living almost calling people out online. So have a very fun episode. This is episode number 8 of the Train with Zan podcast. So for all the show notes, links, and other information, please visit trainwithzan.com/008. And again, make sure while you're there, in your email address, into the newsletter, sign up so that you'll never miss out when a new episode comes out or when I put out new videos or new articles. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive right into today's show.
Let's get this party started in 3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, I am thrilled to have today's guest on the Train with Zan podcast. This is someone you've probably seen online before. He's a 5-time world record powerlifter. He's also been featured on CNN, Huffington Post, Men's Fitness, Schwarzenegger.com, along with a host of other magazines and online media outlets. He's also well known for being the personal coach for Gary Vaynerchuk. He's got about 500,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram. Also very, very active on YouTube and Twitter as well. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and welcome Jordan Syatt to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Jordan. Really appreciate you having on. I know you're a busy guy. Been watching your videos and see what all you've got going on. So thank you for taking some time out of the day. You know, what I really want to talk about today, I feel like is going to be right up your alley, right in your wheelhouse. Online, I think you probably have a reputation of a guy who's just a straight shooter. You just kind of tell it like it is. I don't know if saying you don't have a filter is the right, terminology, but you just come out and you're very honest about lots of things in the fitness industry. So I'm excited to talk about some things that maybe are confusing to people who are newer to the fitness industry. Some of the scams or the shady tactics or, the bad marketing, tactics that people use online to just take people's money and fool things. So excited to kind of talk about a few of these things. But yeah, like I said, I feel like you're one of the guys that's the most honest and transparent and just authentic people out there. So definitely look forward to having your views, out there for people to learn from.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. It's for me. My main goal, the way that I've always looked at it, is my job isn't necessarily to start fires. It's to put them out. Right. It's like, I don't want to start random fires and start say things and make things up. But when other people are doing it in the industry, I sort of want to put those fires out, quell them, show people the truth about what's actually going on, and then give people the knowledge and the opportunity to really be able to be critical thinkers on their own, so that when things pop up, they can put the fires out for themselves. They can learn how to be their own critical thinker and come up with the best decisions for themselves.
Well, I think you're doing a good job of that, and obviously your numbers speak for yourselves. There's a reason that many people follow you. It's because you do put out good information, but you also expose people as well. If I had to guess, I'd say that probably makes you a pretty polar figure. People probably either really gravitate towards you or gravitate away from you. It seems like a lot of people are gravitating towards you, but I think it's important just to be honest with people and put out, like you said, what you think. Try to put out the best information you can, and let people kind of make their own decisions.
100%. Absolutely.
So, well, like I said, what I really want to do is I kind of just want to talk about a number of different, topics, and we'll kind of take this conversation wherever it goes. But in your opinion, what are some of the biggest, whether it be a misconception or a bad marketing tactic, what are some of the most prevalent things that you see online, that really get under your skin or that really drive you nuts?
Honestly, for me, I think the biggest misconception, and because I'm a big principle over method type of coach. Like for me, I really prefer to teach people the principles of what works and then allow them to choose whatever methods best fit their personality and their schedule and their own like needs and basically I want to teach people the principles of what works so then they can individualize it to themselves. So what that means for me is teaching people, for example, listen, let's talk about fat loss, for example, calories in versus calories out, teaching them the principles that calories are super important, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to count your calories. Like if you want to, you can count your calories. If you don't want to count your calories, there are things you could do. If you prefer, you want to go keto, it's fine. You could try keto if you'd like. If you want to do intermittent fasting, you can too, because all of those are simply methods, but none of those methods work if you don't understand the principles and follow the principles of calories in versus calories out. So for me is I really try and teach the method, the principles of why fat loss works, how it works, and then from there give people the tools to create their own methodology that works best for them. So one of the biggest issues that I have is when people become super dogmatic and really, they basically say it's this way or no way at all. It's like, this is right, that's wrong. Keto is the best, intermittent fasting is the best, fit teas are the best, whatever is the best. It's like, well, hold on, like let's just take a break from all this for a second. Number one, whatever constitutes the best is what someone can follow consistently while making progress without it taking over their entire life. So as long as you're following the principles and understand that, you can choose whatever method works best for you. And really the thing that gets under my skin the most is when people get outrageously dogmatic and say that there's only one right way to do things and everything else is wrong.
Well, why do you think people are like that? Because, I noticed that too. It seems like, whether it be paleo or keto or CrossFit or across a number of different things, it's like, man, my way's the right way. The guy I follow online, he lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks. This is the only way to do it. You can't do it any other way. Why do you feel like people are so, I don't know if emotional is the right word, but, so, kind of put blinders on and they get one-dimensional?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think emotional is definitely one of the right words. I think that a lot of this is driven out of emotion and not logic, because a lot of those people where you say that, like, they're like, well, this is the only way. They're like, well, who knows? Like keto is the only way or CrossFit's the only way. They'll say that at an emotional place. But if you have a logical discussion with them and you say, well, so are you saying that anyone the people who have not done CrossFit, people who have not done keto, or people who have not done intermittent fasting, like that they have never succeeded with weight loss or they've never succeeded in getting stronger? Like, you're saying that no one's ever succeeded unless they've done that? Of course, they'll logically say, well, no, of course, like people have succeeded doing other things. It's like, it's based out of an emotional argument, an emotional discussion rather than a logical one. And I think there's a number of reasons for it. I think a lot of it has to do with it. It tends to be easier to make blanket statements, make black and white, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is healthy, this is unhealthy, than to really dive into the gray area where most things lie and say, like, okay, so it's not that this is inherently good or this is inherently bad, but that it depends on, it's more about the dose. It's all dose dependent. Like, is it how much you're doing of certain things? And it's a lot more nuanced when you really get into the thick of it. And a lot of people either aren't educated enough to go deep into the nuance, or they just are too impatient and they'd rather just say, well, this is right, this is wrong. Also, this is where I think you really see the emotion attached to it, is a lot of people, they associate their beliefs with their identity, with their sense of self, which is a very dangerous place to go. In terms of a lot of people who are super, really intense followers or advocates of whatever, whether it's keto, whether it's paleo, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's CrossFit, all of which I'm totally fine with. I have no issues inherently against any of those things. But when you take someone who associates their belief in keto with their identity, with who they are as an individual, with who they are as a person, then you get into a world in which anyone who says something that says even close to the effect of, well, that's great, but it's not the end all be all. Like there are some flaws to it as well. It doesn't work for everybody. Then all of a sudden they take a massive offense to it, and they get really angry and defensive. And then when they go on the defensive, they start saying things very dogmatic. They start saying things very emotion based that are more done to protect their ego and their sense of self than to be able to objectively look at the subject they're talking about and say, okay, you know what? Like, I understand what you're saying. Keto has worked for me because of this and this and this, but it definitely might not work for everybody. And when people start defending a method because it's sort of they're defending their own sense of self and their ego, that's when it all becomes emotion and not logic based.
Yeah, man, I think that hits the nail on the head right there. People, they just kind of associate, what they're doing or what they're trying to do with who they are, and they're two very, very different things. I really like what you're talking about, how you're trying to teach principles. It's kind of like the old analogy, teach a man to fish or give a man a fish. And it seems like you're really teaching guys how to fish and how to sort through the good information and the bad information that's out there and letting them choose a method that's right for them. Like I know personally for me, I can never do keto. I just like carbs too much. I know how my body works. I know how I feel.
I'm with you, man.
I don't know how people even like attempt to try it for a day. But it's amazing that there's people that are just like, man, keto's the only way. It turned my life around. And I get it, man. But I just think there's a lot of gray area. I feel like everything lies on a spectrum, and people have a hard time kind of understanding that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I love carbs. Like I could not imagine doing keto because for me, like carbs are a huge part of my diet. It's a huge part of like what I enjoy. For me, I think a lot of people wear their extremes like a badge of honor on their sleeve. Like a lot of people will like be like, oh, well, I haven't had a carb since 2004, or it's like they whatever it is, like whatever extreme they're following, they like to tell people about it because they think it makes them seem more cool or more savage or whatever it is they're saying. It's like for me, I don't really give a shit. I would rather go out and be able to enjoy myself at Thanksgiving with my friends and my family and not have to worry about restricting myself. I think a lot of it comes from judging others as well. It's like, oh, I can't believe you would do that. It's like a lot of it comes from a lot of judgment cast on other people, which is what sort of drives, I think, their own motivation to not eat a certain way. But like, again, I'm very much with you. The fitness industry runs on a spectrum of extremes. Like things are either good or they're bad, they're right or they're wrong, they're healthy or they're unhealthy, and that stems from selling. It's easier to sell an extreme than it is to sell moderation. You can find that in literally every industry. It's you're always going to sell an extreme. You're always going to sell like the good or the bad, the right or the wrong. You're not going to sell like, all right, well, this is moderate, let's sell that. It's harder to do that. So I think that being said, I think we're also getting to a day and age in which, even though it tends to be easier to sell those things, I think people are also becoming much more intelligent consumers, and they're sort of ready to call people on their bullshit on that front. And they're saying like, listen, like people are starting to realize it's not like that, which is why I think my page has started to do so well, is because I'm not falling into that extremist mentality, and it's almost refreshing for people to see it.
Yeah, man. Again, exactly right. And I'll be honest, not trying to get into a political issue, but I'm convinced that's the reason that our president was elected, because he's very extreme. He's not middle of the road about anything, and people are drawn to that. Whether you like him or you don't like him, that's a different debate. But he's extreme. I mean, he's going to be on one end of the spectrum, and you're going to know exactly what he thinks. And I think a lot of people kind of take that approach online with the fitness as well. That it's either 100% this way, or you got to do it completely opposite for that way. And like you said, there aren't many people out there that get really big or really popular online just saying like, hey man, yeah, you can have a regular diet and you can eat moderate calories, and if you want to snack every once in a while, you can do that. You can still get in shape. It's usually people who have this like, you have to do this, you can't eat any carbs, or yeah, man, I have a Halo Top ice cream every single night. That's part of my deal. It's like one way or the other. There's just not a whole lot of middle ground there. And it is refreshing to see in your posts, man, some of your posts just really, really take off. And I was thinking about this before I called you. I feel like a lot of the reason is because I think of it like comedy. What are the funniest jokes? To me, the funniest jokes are the ones that have some truth in them, and I feel like a lot of your posts, they just have a lot of truth in them. So they really resonate with people. So definitely keep up what you're doing. And I'll make sure to link to all your social media and your websites in the show notes down below so people can find you and follow you. If they're not already, they probably are. But I'll definitely make that available to people as well. Now, speaking of some videos you made, I want to bounce around a little bit and get off topic briefly. You made a video last week or so that's really kind of gone viral. It's got about 250,000 views about how you were coaching Gary Vee and you decided to take a break from that to pursue some other things. Would you mind just talking to us about, what was it like coaching Gary Vee? How'd you get into it, and kind of what are the next steps for you? What are you doing from here?
Yeah. So, I mean, coaching Gary was a blessing. He's an amazing guy. I learned an outrageous amount from him, and he really is who he says he is. And a lot of people, they have a hard time understanding it because they don't really know him. They only see online stuff. And I can tell you firsthand, he really is who he says he is. I got the job because, and I have videos on that as well, but basically because I was putting out content since 2011 online, and his coach before me, followed my work, and he followed me online, and he would post comments on my website, and I would answer them. And so when his contract with Gary was up, Gary was like, "Who's going to coach me next?" And he was like, "I think I have an idea for somebody who would be a good coach." So he reached out to me, and I was living in Israel at the time, and basically I flew from Israel to New York and coached Gary for an hour for an interview, and I got the job. And so then I moved from Tel Aviv to New York, and I've been coaching Gary for the last 3 years. And at this point, basically it was literally a 7 day a week job, like 7 days a week for 3 years straight coaching Gary. So at the end of 3 years, I was just burnt out. So I'm about 2 weeks into a break now. I haven't coached Gary for the last 2 weeks or so. And at this point, the deal is Gary's old coach, he came back, and so now we're alternating every 3 months. So his old coach, Mike, is coaching him for these 3 months, and then I'll coach Gary for 3 months after that, and we'll alternate back and forth for a year.
That's awesome, man. It sounds like that's a good gig for everybody involved. So congratulations. So now that you're not coaching Gary full time, at least for the next couple of months, what's on your plate? Are you diving, which you've been social media full time, I'd say for quite a while anyway, but are you really diving into the social media stuff more now?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely doing a lot more on social, but also doing a lot more speaking engagements is probably the biggest thing. Is doing a lot more speaking, traveling around, going to different gyms, and doing different seminars. So that's really what the main focus is for the next few months. And then also sort of to prep for. So I have these 3 months, and then I'll be with Gary for 3 months, and then 3 months after that, when I'm off, is a lot of scheduling and getting speaking engagements ready for that. So I've just found that in addition to social media, one thing I really love, I love speaking. I love doing speaking engagements. I love getting to talk with people, and I love actually interacting with a crowd. So that's doing a lot of what I'm doing right now.
Well, good, man. Well, I know you'll do great, and congratulations on what you have going on. And, you talked about how you went on an interview and you kind of trained Gary for an hour. One of the things I want to talk to you about is, you've trained online. I know you probably have online programs versus, training people in person. One of the big things that I see online is people sell. Some people do a good job of it and they sell quality products. Some people do a really poor job of it and sell really bad training products online. What are your thoughts about the people that, sell either the ebooks or the online programs? And I kind of call them the cookie cutter programs. Do you feel like any of those can work, or do you feel like for the most part, it's got to be a one-off individual thing?
I think that's a really good question. And one thing that I've said consistently is that following a decent program 100% of the time will yield way better results than following the perfect program 60% of the time. And that's sort of my way of saying consistency is the driver of everything, right? I mean, I know I'm sure you've seen P90X, and you've seen all these really essentially
I've done P90X
programs. So, and for me, you look at P90X, I'm like, man, that's a really just terribly designed program. It's not like it's not really very much science based. There's a lot of like really dangerous stuff involved. There's really not much progression to it past the 90 days. Like, but if someone does it consistently, they'll see results. So it sort of goes to show for me that like the number one most important thing, whatever program you're doing, is consistency. I think obviously the ideal is to get the best of both worlds, have more of an individualized program that someone will follow consistently, but understanding that more individualized program is probably going to cost more money. It might not be realistic for a lot of people. So being able to have a more accessible program that might be a lower cost program that it might not be individualized, but it's still well written and science based. I think that it can and it is very, very helpful as long as you follow it consistently. I think a lot of people fall into a rut in terms of being like, well, I'm not going to follow that program because it wasn't specifically individualized, written for me. And I know a lot of coaches, they almost like have another one of those badges on their sleeve, like being like, well, I write every program individualized. It's like, that's fantastic, but I bet probably 95% of your programs look very fucking similar. Like they probably look almost exactly the same. And what individualized looks like for me is like, you look at what the person has, you look at what their goals are, and most of the programs are probably going to be very similar. But if someone has some knee issues, maybe you're taking the forward lunges out. If someone like has a tight lower back, maybe you're giving them some extra like elevated pigeon stretches. If someone has some shoulder issues, maybe you're making sure they're doing more band pull aparts and some wall slides. Like individualization is the minutia. It's the small stuff. It's the things that each individual needs based on like the things that they've expressed to you purposefully, like that either injuries they have or specific goals they have. Like I have one client who she really loves handstands and she wants to get better at handstands. So in between some of her main work sets, I'll have her doing handstands as like active recovery or like some handstand holds. And that's just like, that doesn't change the base of the program, the shell of the program, but you just add those little things in there to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and individualize it to them. But I think a lot of people really put way too much weight on the individualization and not enough weight on the consistency.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that. I feel like I've bought a lot of programs online, and I wouldn't say I've really followed any of them or many of them, to the letter, to the T. But what I do is I kind of pick and choose. Hey, I like this. I don't like this. I do like this. I'm going to try to add this in. And so I kind of try to, work around a program to individualize it to me. But I think like, going back to your original statement, it's about giving people information, letting them have the ability to choose, and just educating people so they don't think that, oh, it's all in, I have to do this program exactly by the letter, or I'm not going to do it at all. No, man, you can find the stuff you like and the things that, work for you. And then, swap out and fill in other things as well as you need. I do think there are some people online that just put out, man, really, really bad programs. Whether they're selling the ebooks for $19 or $10, or I've even seen some people selling for $5. There are some coaches out there that are just scam artists. I feel like Instagram's filled with a lot of people like that. Again, we don't need to call out anybody's name in particular, but there are people who are, they say it's individualized and it's not, which I guess in the news, oh God, what was that girl's name not too long ago that came out who was supposedly coaching people to individualized programs, and she got sued and called out online and all that sort of stuff. So if you were going to research a coach or a trainer or whoever it is, to try to figure out, are they putting out good information or bad information, for somebody who's maybe not into the fitness world as much as you are, what would you tell them to look for? I mean, how should they research somebody to know that, yeah, man, I know Jordan's putting out great information. I know Billy Bob is putting out bad information. What would be some things that you would look for? Do you look for credentials? Do you look for testimonials? What would help somebody pick out a good program?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would 100% look for testimonials for sure. I think that testimonials are actually a fantastic way to do it. Of course, like people could fake testimonials and find like pictures from other people that like aren't actually their clients. I just don't think that the vast majority of people are doing that at all. If anyone's doing that, I think that they're the minority by far. And I would also take the time to really speak with the coach. I think that says more about the coach than anything. Is there, if it's a coach who's looking to cut corners, if it's a coach who like is really like looking to take the shortcut in everything, they're not trying to individualize it, then you'll notice it in your interactions with that coach. The coaches who are going to give you the most amount of time, the most amount of individualization, the most care are the coaches that are going to be asking you the most questions. They're going to be trying to get the most out of you. If it seems like it's an auto-generated interaction and they're not really trying to figure out who you are, what your goals are, what injuries you have, what you've struggled with in the past, what do you want to achieve in the future, if they're not getting that information from you, then that's a really good indication that you probably shouldn't work with that coach.
I think that's perfect advice. And man, it's funny. It kind of makes me think about something that happened to me recently. Within the past month or two, I was thinking about hiring a new coach, and I reached out to a few people, and there was one guy I was interested in working with because it just seems like everybody he works with gets in incredible shape. And I sent an email, that it was on his website or through his Instagram. And I never could talk to the guy. I could just talk to his wife, who's his assistant, and we exchanged 3 or 4 emails. And I was like, hey, I'd really like to, hear from this guy. I could never even speak to him. It was just like, man, this guy's not going to be invested in me if I can't even have an email conversation with him. My emails aren't even making it to him. I can't imagine he's been taking time out of his day to really be thinking about, my body and my training program and my goals. So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally perfect. And who knows, it might have been that, like, he would be the one designing the programs and it'd be great. But you also, that is the best part about that is you knew that wasn't what you wanted. You wanted to have access to him and to speak with him. And for you, that wasn't going to be a good fit because you weren't able to speak with that coach. So you're like, you know what, this isn't worth it. So I think like the best part is like you went out of your way to send the emails and to have those conversations, and then you decided this wasn't a good fit. And like that's really what it boils down to is the individual taking personal responsibility to like go out, speak with several different coaches, find who actually has their best interest at heart. And I'll tell you this, like I've hired coaches that weren't a good fit for me, but I don't look at it as a waste of money because I've ended up finding some amazing coaches. I hired 4 business coaches before I ended up hiring the one business coach that changed my life forever. It's like a lot of times it's the ones that it's sort of like doing a job or an internship when you're a kid, like that. It's not just about finding the one that you like. It's also about finding the ones that you don't like that really leads to the positive outcomes. So it's not just about only looking for the perfect coach, but also seeing the coaches that you interact with that maybe you don't jibe with or that like don't give you the best experience, so to really appreciate the ones that do.
Yeah, I've always thought that, some of the most valuable lessons they're not always what to do. Sometimes they're what not to do, whether that be working
100%.
with a coach or whatever. You can learn a lot by, working with somebody and figuring out, man, I really don't like that. That's not the way to do it for me. So yeah, I'm with you. I've worked with a number of coaches before in different areas. Sounds just like you have. And some I learned great things to do. Some I learned some really, things that I'm not going to treat it that way. So, really good, really interesting. Now you said you've hired coaches before, and I know you've hired business coaches. Do you hire someone to do your training, or do you program your own training and nutrition yourself?
So I did do my own training and nutrition for years and years and years and years. Just recently, in the last 2 weeks, I hired a coach, Paul Carter, because for years my main focus was powerlifting. That's like what I did. Powerlifting was my thing, and the way I saw it was there was nobody in the world who was going to be able to better understand my needs as a powerlifter than myself, just because that was my specialty. That's what I did best. So I didn't hire a coach for my powerlifting. But now that I'm no longer powerlifting and I want to learn more about bodybuilding, I would be a fool to say that I know better than someone who's been bodybuilding for over a decade or 2 decades. So I hired an expert, and Paul Carter is a tremendous bodybuilding coach, and he's an amazing success. And, it was, for me, like, I don't need a ton of access to a coach. I don't need a ton of hand holding, or I don't need a lot. I just basically need the program and some guidance, like if I need an exercise video or whatever, which is sort of the way that I approach coaching too. It's like if they need videos, I'm happy to send them videos. I'm happy to critique their technique for them. But Paul sort of runs on the same spectrum where it's like he doesn't need a lot of hand holding, but everything that I do need is there. So I did hire a coach very recently, and I'm super excited about it and happy about it because it takes the thinking out of the equation. I don't have to add that onto my to-do list. Basically, it's all taken care of for me.
Well, I'm a huge proponent of that. Like I said, I've worked with coaches. You've worked with coaches. I think it's interesting. The more people I speak to, who are performing at high levels, who are, very knowledgeable and very capable of writing programs or setting up a nutrition program, they still get another set of eyes to look at them objectively and to write their programs and help them out. And I feel like that makes a big difference. I've said it on this show a couple of times before, but it's like Tiger Woods. I mean, Tiger Woods is the best golfer in the world, years ago, but he still had a swing coach. I think there's a lot of value. You look at all the guys you talk about getting more into bodybuilding. All the guys on the Mr. Olympia stage, they have a coach. They have somebody that's working on their training. They have somebody that's working on their nutrition and all the other aspects of it as well. But they run with people and they get second opinions and third opinions a lot of time. And it just seems like if you're able to do that financially, if it's important to you, I would recommend anybody reaching out to someone and, whether it be you or Paul Carter or whoever, trying to get in touch with people who know more about a subject than you do and try to learn from them.
Yeah, I very much agree. And it's funny because a lot of people might hear powerlifting, bodybuilding, like there's a lot of similarities, obviously, but I mean, the differences are vast as well. And I think a lot of people, they let their ego get in the way. Like, oh, I understand how to do this. I know how to do this. And they, for whatever reason, they're averse to hiring a coach. I think that coaches need coaches too. And one of the best ways to learn is to hire somebody else and see how they structure things. Cause I mean, no one ever was upset because they learned more, because they learned a new method. I think it's always a good idea to keep learning.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I agree. I really like the way you said that. I think another thing they help out with is helping you set realistic expectations, which is another topic that I wanted to speak with you about. I feel like one of the big problems online that people see, if you just scroll through Instagram or you scroll through YouTube, I feel like there's a lot of people who make these unrealistic claims. Like, hell, even I pick on Dr. Oz, but Dr. Oz, I saw him on the cover of a magazine last week, and it was like lose 24 pounds in 16 days. And there's all sorts of unrealistic expectations that are just guiding people in the wrong direction and sending the wrong message. And, you talked about earlier and it's more important to be consistent. It's not about trying to lose 24 pounds in 16 days. It's about making lifestyle changes and making better decisions on what you put in your body and trying to go to the gym every day, even when you don't feel like it. But there are a lot of people out there that sell, these unrealistic expectations, like lose 50 pounds in 4 weeks, or get on my 4-week program and completely, change your body. I feel like that's a shame because I feel like it just puts a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths when they can't do what the person is selling them to do.
Yeah, I very much understand. I agree.
One of the things that I feel like is the biggest is probably the weight loss. There's definitely the muscle gain side of it too. People say, hey, you take this supplement and gain 10 pounds of muscle in 30 days or whatever it is. And I feel like supplements are a really interesting topic because I think there's a place for them. I think they help. I think they don't do as much as what people wish they would do. But are there any supplements that you think, well, I'd love to hear, if you have a list of things that you think are good, but also maybe ones you think are overhyped and overblown too.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think supplements are, it says it in the word, supplements are supplemental, right? It's like supplements are the very small percentage of things that might help once you reach a higher level of performance. But the issue that I see is a lot of people, when they start working out, they haven't worked out in years, or they haven't had a consistent schedule in years, or their diet is still shit. And before they get on a workout program, before they start getting their sleep together, before their nutrition gets in check, they go to GNC, they're like, all right, what should I take today? And they start trying to buy a lot of supplements before they have anything else in check. For me, I think before you start getting any supplements, you should be following a consistent training program for at least 3 years. You should have your nutrition in check 100%, and you should be getting at least 6 to 8 hours of sleep at night. There's no reason to be. I mean, I over the last 2.5 years, when I was with Gary, my nutrition and sleep were shit, absolutely awful. It was taking supplements for me would have been a waste at that point because I wasn't putting my body in the optimal position for strength and for lean body mass in general. Taking supplements would have been just a waste. First get everything in order in the way that you can get it in order, and then if you want to optimize it with supplements, you're welcome to. But I think too many people start with supplements And that's just ass backwards, because you can take all the supplements you want, but if you don't have your major, strength training, your nutrition, your sleep in check, it's not going to work. That being said, once you have all that stuff in check, I would say creatine is a very scientifically supported, very effective supplement, especially from a maximal strength perspective. Beta-alanine is equally scientifically supported from a more of a muscle endurance perspective. I hate it just because it gives me the tinglies. It, like, makes my skin feel like I got creepy crawlers on it.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
But I mean, it is definitely supported. And if you're more of an endurance athlete, like, there are some benefits to it. I would say if you don't eat fish several times a week, fish oil is super important. If you do eat fish at least 3 or 4 times a week, it's sort of redundant. You don't need it. I would say vitamin D, if you don't get at least 20 minutes of sunlight every day, is super important, especially from just like a overall health and also just happiness. And also a multivitamin, although if you're living in a first world country, odds are you don't need it. But especially if you're dieting, if you're in an extreme calorie deficit, it would be a good idea to have a multivitamin. But otherwise, like, you're good. You don't really need anything else unless your doctor is specifically prescribing something to you. But I think most people, again, are going to those glass cases in GNC looking for the test boosters or looking for the fat burning supplements or whatever. It's like, that shit doesn't work. That shit, like, it doesn't work unless you work.
Yeah.
And like the reality is, like, for the vast majority of people, it's not going to create any amount of change.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like, man, again, I keep going back to Instagram. I feel like there's a lot of good things happening on Instagram, but I feel like there's a lot of bad things as well. And you see, your favorite fitness personality, whoever it may be, and one week they may be, selling the waist trainer, the next week it's the teeth whiteners, and the next week it's the whatever, the fat burning rub you put on your stomach. And there's just all this shit out there that just absolutely doesn't work. But people seem to believe it because there are people who have, good physiques that are selling it. And I think that's where the education part is important. And hey, I'm not saying that people that have great physiques online, may not be knowledgeable in a lot of these topics, but I think it's important for people to really dig a little bit deeper and do research on their own rather than just say, hey, this guy who, is a model with 6-pack abs looks great, I got to do exactly what he's doing because his way is the only way that works.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right.
And so as we look at the Instagram celebrities, do you, as somebody who's built a big audience doing things the right way, like you've done it, do you ever look at these people who have these bodies or, have these platforms, and they're selling this crap? I mean, how does that make you feel? Do you ever does it ever rub you the wrong way, or what do you think about it?
I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't really bother me that much, just because they might be winning right now in the short term, but long term, it's not going to last. Like, it just doesn't play out that way in general. Like, if you're not providing good content, if you're not helping people, if you're not doing the right thing, it's going to come back to bite you. And not to mention, what I also think is worth noting is that I personally, through growing my audience, I've gotten to know a lot of these people, whether it's just through reaching out to me or just like at different events. I've met them, and a lot of these people, they might, like, I know it sounds cliche, but I'm telling you, like, as fact from speaking with these people, like, a lot of them, they put out this idea of this grand or lavish life on Instagram or social media, and it's nowhere near that in reality, like, at all. And so I think one of the reasons it doesn't bother me very much is because they might have a lot of followers and get a lot of likes, but that's not translating to a happier life. And I can tell you that as a fact from seeing a lot of these people in person and meeting them. Like, a lot of them are super unhappy. They're not living the grand, lavish life that they're putting out on social media. And I've always just found, like, the more that I spend my time thinking or dwelling on what other people are doing, the unhappier I get. The more that I focus on what I can do to help other people, the happier I get, and the more people appreciate what I'm doing. I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people in the industry make nowadays is they spend so much of their time, like, hating on what other people are doing and mad that other people are doing, that they end up doing no good. They're not helping anybody. They're just spending all their time hating and dwelling and being jealous and upset that someone else has more followers than them. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing to actually make a difference? Because hating on them or being upset or jealous or whatever is not helping anybody. And a lot of times people get mad when I say that. And I'm like, listen, you can get upset if you want to, but you trying to hate on other people, it's not actually making any change. That's why, like, what all the posts that I make, a lot of times, like if it's hating on Fit Tea or if it's hating on these cleanses and stuff, I'm not just like hating on it and that's it. Like, I'm giving valuable solutions and saying I'm giving like actual practical application. It's like sometimes I'll use that as a way to make a joke and to get people's attention and to draw them in. But then in the actual posting the content, I'm actually talking about the right way to do things and how they can actually start to get better. It's not just like, fuck these fuckers and then leave. It's like, hey, like, here's why this doesn't work. Here's how they're duping you into believing it works. And here's what you can do from here. I think the more that we spend time, hating on these people who have a lot of likes or a lot of followers, and the less time we spend actually helping people, then, the more unhappy we're going to be and, the less we're going to help in general.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people think that life is a zero-sum game where if Jordan wins, that means I lose. It's not like, man, we can all be happy for each other. Hey, I want to see you have success. I want to see everybody have success. I want to see everybody lead a happy life and do the things that make them happy and feel good about themselves. So if you're spending all day walking around and just thinking about, oh, that dude got more likes on his picture than me, he's got more followers than me, that's a pretty miserable life. So I think there is a lot more than meets the eye sometimes with a lot of people that you see online. And like I said before, that's why I'm enjoying having you on, because it's easy to see when people are authentic. I'm not saying you can't always, weed through everybody online, but man, when I watch your videos and I watch your posts and I just see how you interact with the camera and with the people, very authentic, and definitely appreciate you doing that. How would you say that you have built up, I know you talk about putting out quality content, and I definitely 100% agree with you. I think the stuff that you put out is high quality content that is engaging and educates. But for people who maybe want to start doing, kind of what you're doing, which is ultimately helping people, what advice would you give them?
Honestly, I think the best advice that I was ever given when I first started creating content and that I could give somebody else is just to start making content. It's sort of like the same advice to be like, how do I start working out? How do I start eating healthier? Just start doing it, start putting it out there. I think that what a lot of people overlook is that content is king. Like, above all else, no matter if you're doing the podcast, whether you're doing Instagram, whether you're doing YouTube, whether you're doing Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever it is, most important thing is that your content is king. And that means that you're giving valuable, helpful, practically applicable content that can help people succeed and achieve their goals. I think a lot of people are too quick to jump into trying to make sales, trying to write books, trying to make programs, trying to get clients. And that's not a bad thing to have all that stuff, but it's going to be a lot more of a smooth transition if you start helping people and giving away content for free that's actually valuable content rather than jumping right into trying to make money. And I think that if you really want to start doing that and helping people on a mass scale, then the best way to help people on a mass scale is to give away free, helpful content.
Would you say, and again, I've watched a lot of Gary Vee's videos and read his books. I mean, that's a lot of what he preaches, is like content. Would you say that's a lesson you've kind of learned from him, or is that something you kind of started doing before you started working with him?
It's definitely been solidified with Gary, and I've learned different ways of executing on that with Gary. But I've been doing that since 2011. I started my website in 2011 in July, and so it's almost been 8 years now. But I've done that for a while. But the thing about Gary is that's sort of the benefit of understanding principles over methods is you understand the principle, but then once you get in different situations, you learn different methodologies of executing on it. And so I've definitely learned through different methodologies to execute with Gary. And I think my mindset as an individual and as a person has changed a lot through being with Gary and working with Gary. So it's helped me sort of cultivate a better relationship with myself and also with my audience with him. But definitely, I wrote at least one article a week every week for 5 years straight on my website and giving away thousands of free stuff on Instagram and YouTube and stuff for years and years and years long before that as well. So it's definitely been something I've been doing.
That's good advice. I think there's a lot of people, people we talked about earlier, you see how big of a following or how big of an audience or platform you can get online. And it's very appealing to a lot of people who are trying to, grow their personal brand. And I think that's really good advice is, just start doing it. I've personally been online since 2007. That's when I started my first website, and I've kind of switched genres a little bit. I used to put out a lot of baseball information, and I still do, but now I'm trying to put out a little bit more fitness, nutrition, and training type info. And I agree with you, man. Just put out good info. Try to help people, and give it a little bit of time, and things seem to take care of themselves. But I would like to get back to, kind of the, we kind of gone off a tangent, and that's my fault, but, I just enjoy hearing your thoughts and hearing your experiences and stories and working with these guys and kind of where you've been and how you've gotten to where you are. But getting back to the, the online with like the, the shady tactics and the marketing and things like that, a lot of the stuff is not necessarily regulated. Some of the claims that people make online, while it's supposed to be regulated, people don't really, follow all the rules per se. How do you feel like that what kind of impact does that have on the fitness industry when people do make those claims that, hey, you can lose 20 pounds in 10 days or, gain 10 pounds of muscle in a week and things like that? Do you feel like that has a negative impact, and kind of shines a negative light on all the people that are putting out good information?
I don't think it puts a negative light on the people that are putting out good information. I think it misleads the people who aren't aware. I remember being in high school and hearing stuff like that and going to GNC and spending way too much of my mom's money on products that weren't going to work. And I think, it basically, it dupes the unaware into false expectations and false realities. And it leads them down a path of wasting their money and wasting their time. A lot of times getting unmotivated and demotivated and feeling like a failure. But I also think that in a weird way, it leads itself to our end of the industry, the science-based end of the industry, to really shine, because that's where we can sort of start spreading the truth. And realistically, one of the reasons why I think, for example, my page has done so well is because people are sick of that type of marketing. People are sick of that type of stuff. They've had enough of it. And it's really interesting. I mean, if you go to the Kardashians, their Instagram page, when they're promoting these like flat tummy teas, you go to the comment section. I mean, you see thousands and thousands of comments of people being like, enough of this bullshit. Stop doing this. Like, it's hitting mainstream media now. It's going like viral on news stations of these people who are promoting these like really bullshit products and I think now more than ever, that stuff is being exposed because of social media and because of people like us telling the truth. So I think we're seeing less and less of that stuff and more of the good stuff, which is why I think like we need to spend less time dwelling on the handful of people who are doing bad stuff and using shady marketing techniques, and spending more of our time putting out really great quality content that's actually going to help people and tell them the truth.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you've got a number of, degrees and credentials, where you actually have a real background in this stuff. For somebody who does want to, get more information, like I said, the first thing I would do is say, start following people like you online and listening to what you have to say. But are there any resources, or are there any books you've read, or any websites that you visit where you get your information from, or you get some of your information from, that might be a good resource for people listening?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, so Lyle McDonald has a tremendous website called bodyrecomposition.com. It's a free website. Like, if you read every article on that website and internalize it, you'll understand more about the science and really the research-based nutrition world than the vast majority of people. Alan Aragon has a tremendous research review, the AARR, Alan Aragon Research Review. It's $10 a month. I've subscribed to it for years and years now. He puts out a new research review every month. I think that is probably the best resource I've ever invested in. And then I would say, I mean, that's probably those are the two best ones, especially from the nutrition side of things. Strength training side of things, that comes from a little bit, I don't know of any research reviews that are fantastic on that front. I would say that comes more from just like reading books, Science and Practice of Strength Training, Super Training, special strength trainings for sports manuals. I would say what's another really good one on that front? Tudor Bompa's books on programming and periodization are tremendous. Those are more from those books, but from the nutrition side of things, Alan Aragon's research review, and then also Lyle McDonald's website, bodyrecomposition.com, are probably my two favorites.
Those are two of my favorite guys too. I actually read one of Lyle's books. It was called The Protein Book. I probably read it 3 or 4 months ago.
It's a great book. Yeah.
Oh man, it was unbelievable. And I feel like I'm a nerd because I just nerded out an entire book about protein, but it was amazing how much I learned and how much information there was that, for somebody who I like to think I'm fairly well read on it, there was more information in that book than I had any idea that I could possibly have learned. So that's a great one. I've spoken to Alan Aragon a couple times through social media, and I think he's going to come on the show at some point. But yeah, he's a great one. I don't know if you've ever followed Mass Monthly Application of Strength Sport. It's by Greg Knuckles.
Knuckles, yeah.
And Eric Helms.
Yep, that's a great one.
Yeah, so I actually I spoke with Greg. His episode hasn't aired yet. It'll come on here pretty soon. But that's a great resource. They cover a lot of the scientific articles that come out, every month. They have a same type deal as Alan. They have a newsletter that comes out once a month and cover all the most recent scientific research papers, and really interesting for people that are interested in that. So I would definitely recommend people checking out those websites, checking out Mass, and reading some of those books as well. But like I said, I think that we talked about with content, the key is just starting. I feel like the key with this stuff is just starting too. If you want to learn more about nutrition, man, just start reading some stuff. Just start watching some videos online, and just, try to learn. It takes a little bit of an effort. You don't have to have a master's degree in nutrition. You don't have to have a PhD, but if you can give yourself any sort of information, I feel like you'll put yourself in a better situation to have success, whether it be with a weight loss diet or gain and mass diet or whatever you're trying to do. You need information, and you need to then put it to practical use consistently. So, you started off the show kind of talking about being consistent, and I feel like that's one of the things that most people have success. You've obviously been consistent. You don't get to be a world record holder by not having consistent training in nutrition. You talked about putting out articles consistently for 5 years every single week. So that's something you've kind of mastered. I feel like the people that are really good are good at behavior change, and they're good at building habits. For people listening, do you have any tips maybe for building habits or creating consistency for maybe the people that, I get to the gym when I can, or I eat healthy when it's convenient? What would be a tip that would help somebody be more consistent with their training regimen?
I think probably the best tip I can, and this is actually, this is probably the best one to leave off on. I think it's probably like one of the more powerful ones, if you really think about it, is to really remember that just because you didn't go to the gym one day, or just because like you didn't stick to your diet one day, that you didn't fuck up. And so really it's more of a deeply rooted psychology. And if you understand this, that most lack of consistency comes from the feeling of screwing it, comes from the feeling of failure. It comes from like, well, I missed my diet, so I might as well keep screwing up. I didn't go to the gym, so I might as well just not go to the gym anymore. Whereas if you can start to cultivate this understanding that just because you missed one day or missed 1 week or missed 1 month, you didn't fail, that it's all part of the process. And as long as you get back on track, you're going to be okay. Then you can really start to cultivate a lot more consistency, because you're not looking at any one session or any one meal or any one day as a failure. You're looking at it as just part of the process as a whole. So I think one of the best ways to learn how to start staying consistent is to not allow yourself to believe that you failed if you didn't do as well as you could have on a certain day or week or month, just to get back on track.
And that's one of your big principles, I think, right? Because I've seen you post that online. I've seen you post it on Twitter. I've seen you post it on Instagram and a number of different videos. That's probably got to be one of your biggest principles that you probably teach your clients, right?
It's 100%. It's the first video I give my clients in my nutrition coaching course and my inner circle members. And it's the most important one, because no matter what I teach them, no matter what nutrition guidelines I give them, no matter what workouts I give them, more important than any of that is understanding like that they didn't fuck up if they go off track. Because once you take that excuse away, once you take the idea of screwing up out of their vocabulary, out of their mindset, then it's impossible for them to give up, because they didn't screw up, no matter what they did. Even if they didn't email me for 2 months, even if they didn't do anything for 6 months straight, they didn't screw up. They can always get right back on track. And the more that you really hammer this home into people's mindset and their psyche, then the less likely they are to fall off track at all.
Man, for sure. I really like that. And that's a really good segue into, I wanted to ask you about, what exactly services you provide. You mentioned your inner circle, you mentioned a membership. Can you kind of tell the listeners, what obviously we know you're popular on social media, but for somebody that might be interested in, working with you or reaching out and being a little more involved with you personally, what do you offer and what do you do?
Yeah. So, I appreciate that. And really the thing that I say here is, before anyone even thinks about working with me or possibly paying me for anything, is I would go look at my free content, go look at my Instagram, go look at my YouTube, go look at my Twitter, go look at my website. I do offer different coaching one-on-one and a monthly membership that's lower cost, which is my inner circle. But before anyone even thinks about that, I don't ever like to make a pitch in a interview like this, because I don't think that I've earned their right or their trust yet. So before I even give any of that, go find me on social media, go look at my free content. And if you like that and want to discuss more, I'm more than happy to. And I know a lot of people in this situation, they would say, well, I have this program, I have this book, and I've got all that, but I don't want anyone to buy that yet. I'd prefer I build the trust and earn the right first. So go find my free content, and then I'm happy to discuss from there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Well, like I said, I'm definitely going to link to you in the show notes, and I'll put your website up there and your YouTube channel and Instagram and everything else as well. But if you want to run through where people can find you really quickly, that'd be great before I let you off here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So Instagram, Syatt Fitness, my YouTube, Jordan Syatt. And if you just Google my name, Jordan Syatt, you can find me there, my podcast, the Jordan Syatt Mini Podcast. So you can find me anywhere, and I'm always happy to answer your email or any questions. And I really appreciate you having me on the show, man.
Well, Jordan, man, I know how busy you are, I know how much you got going on, and definitely appreciate your time. A lot of wisdom and knowledge bombs you dropped today, so appreciate that. I look forward to watching you more in the future and seeing what you have coming over these next few months. I know you got a lot of videos and a lot of content coming out, so looking forward to watching that. But thanks again for coming on. Definitely appreciate your time. Know how valuable it is, and appreciate all the helpful information that you gave everybody listening today.
Thank you so much, man. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to the Train with Zan podcast.
Where our goal is to help you look, feel, and perform like an athlete.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and follow Zan on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
The training doesn't have to stop here. For today's show notes and more information about training, nutrition, and fitness,
Head on over to trainwithzan.com and join the team.